Hey everybody, I'm just checking in. I had a thought I was going to share. Some of you are aware of by now that I share my thoughts when I have them, as weird or as goofy as they may be. The thought I just had was sometimes it's not easy to be aware of how many people make sense. And by that I mean it's not that all sides are equally important of a view, like you can see both views. But just generally, if you're somebody, I'm speaking from my experience, if you're somebody who sees where people are coming from and you believe that generally when they talk, they have something they're trying to express and it's honest, it's not easy because it can feel like I'm always coming across like someone who doesn't have a view or doesn't have a side. I remember in college one time we were in the, sorry for shaking the camera, but one time we were in the common area and they were debating something, if you can call it a debate. It didn't adhere to any debate rules, just kind of the street rules of the common area, if that's adequate to say. But they were just going at it and they were heated, and I had a friend, Brian, had his arms crossed and he's leaning back in his chair looking at me, and he's looking at me for about like a minute straight. He goes, I never hear you speak up with your view. I hear you speak up and interact, but I never hear you express your view. And I kind of just laughed, and I was just like, well, it's not because I don't have a view, it's just because I spend more of my time trying to encourage people to listen better and to be more clear about what they think, because most of my experience in the world is not that I don't have a view on a matter. It's more that I just see how much people talk past one another because they're so intent on what they see, more intent on what they see than really connecting with other people. And so, it's kind of a downside, or maybe not a downside. For me, it's maybe something I have to admit is something I struggle with. My own interest in connecting with people has a lot to do with how I participate in a conversation. Like it doesn't feel good to me when it feels like I'm in a conversation that it only matters just to state your view, because I don't get anything out of that. Like I know other views exist, and I know people disagree with the way I see things, and I know I don't agree with the way people see things. But so yeah, those are some thoughts that are coming up. It's sometimes it's not really fun, and it comes across like I only want to be a peacemaker. Not that that's bad, but only want like someone who's being seen as a peacemaker sometimes can, to the people on the extreme ends, can, I guess it can just look wavy, like you're not really useful to the cause. And it's interesting, in my view, that's kind of the point. It's very difficult throughout the ancient world up to now. What people do in their causes starts honestly as a genuine need to reform, but because we're not aware of how we go about reforming things, sometimes we demolish old structures and the people those structures were serving to the exclusion of having any peace going forward. And so it's almost like, some old structures really need to go because they're not serving anyone. For example, racism, that's not serving anybody. Whoever that's serving is not the idea that we need to live in a world that only works for one group of people, excludes other people. But on the other hand, if you take the people, the only way to get rid of them is to dominate them to the point of not existing. It's like you become a monster, and there's now a monster in the utopia you've created. And I feel like we have archetypes that point out that reality throughout history as well. Stories where when you're genuinely just trying to make your home place better, by getting rid of all these people who are attacking you, but you got rid of them in a way that unwittingly had a monster or a villain living in the new reality. So anyway, I think I just found myself wanting to talk about sometimes how confusing it is to be someone who sees where people are coming from, because at the end of the day, I feel like most of my time is spent stepping back and going, I see where you're coming from. And then from the other side, I see where you're coming from. It's not easy to always see where people are coming from, but there are habits from knowing people are coming from somewhere when they talk. And generally, it's best to believe them and listen. And it's people like, I'm wrapping up. No, you're not. It's people like Jonathan Haidt that say things like, we get at truth better with working with our opposition, by inviting our opposition to be better versions of themselves so that they can critique our thinking. We work at truth better that way. That's a better version of the scientific experiment, is by engaging people to be the best versions of their opposition to ideas that we bring up, so that we can keep each other in check, and there can be a broader pool of agreement across diversity, instead of a homogeneous group of agreement. There's a heterogeneous. I don't know if I'm saying that well. Gabe and big words. I'm either in trouble with some people or being laughed at by some people, but oh well. Hey, I wish you all my best. This was a long one. It's good to check in with you.